We don't all have to love the current state of Cowboy football, just like we all don't have to hate on Mike Gundy's hand in it. But we all can agree that BP is one of the greatest to ever do it in Stillwater, America, and it's nice to see another one living up with the Kings.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Get a big return by placing a $5 bet that can get you $150 back in bonus bets if your $5 hauler is a winner. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of Cowboy football. We'll take a little bit of a break from the state of Cowboy football and Mike Gundy's hand in it and talk about one of the GOATs. Now it is official. Brennan Presley from Bixby, Oklahoma is now one of the greatest to ever play wide receiver in Stillwater. And that list is pretty incredible. We all see what Tylan Wallace is doing now, right? James Washington's one of the greatest of all time. Justin Blackman, Hartley Dykes, and then seeing some other guys like Tyron Johnson and Tyreek Hill. It does add to the mystique of this particular position at Oklahoma State. And even if Casey Dunn has potentially lost a little bit of the luster, it still is worthy of talking about Brennan Presley, as the dude is now the number one leading receptions guy all time at Oklahoma State, passing one of the legends himself, Rashaun Woods. Additionally, he's also now part of the Mr. 5000 club that only Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas, and Terry Miller are a part of. He's only the fourth member all time. And again, Oklahoma State hasn't always had a long track record of being one of the GOATs or one of the greatest or one of the best even at football. It took us a long time to get to this level. But at the same time, you've had some of the GOATs that have come through here, that have had NFL careers, that have ended up in the College Football Hall of Fame, some in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and some are still currently doing it in the NFL as we speak. Brennan Presley is now in that mix. And this is actually pretty remarkable if you think about it. Typically, whenever you're undervalued, under-recruited, it's because of your size. And Brennan Presley is no different, coming in at right around 5'8", 5'9", $165, $170. Obviously, a little bit lighter than that even coming out of high school. But the athleticism, the Gatorade Player of the Year, all of that was very evident. Although not very many universities were willing to take a risk on somebody that small. Playing the slot receiver nowadays, I think the Wes Welkers and the Danny Amendolas of the world and Julian Edelmans have proven that it's not always about the size of the dog, but about the size of the fight in the dog, right? Something to that effect. You get it. And Brennan Presley is the epitome of a dog on the football field. How many times have we seen him get knocked out and we all collectively thought that could be a season ender, or it could be such a major concussion that he's going to be out for multiple weeks. Yet somehow, every time he takes these crazy hits, he's always able to pop back up. Now, that is obviously going to be one of the reasons that he's, joining this list of the all-time greats. Number one all-time in receptions, and only the fourth Cowboy ever to join the 5,000-yard club. But I also wanted to take a moment to appreciate and thank Brennan Presley for not only sticking around, because it did appear as though that he was potentially going to be part of the mass exodus from 2022. He did not decide to go anywhere, even though his brother would, end up leaving Oklahoma State. And, they always wanted to play college ball together. Playing at Oklahoma State was a dream of theirs. And, their family obviously had a hand in some of the decision-making processes for both of the Presley brothers to end up in Stillwater. So to have one of them leave during a mass exodus, when we do have some issues in the locker room, and there seem to be some issues conversationally with the coaching staff and the direction moving forward. Amongst all of that, Brennan Presley was one of the few mainstay dudes that decided to stick around. And for that, we'll always be appreciative. Not to mention the fact that we haven't really given him the greatest of quarterback opportunities. Could you imagine what Brennan Presley's yards would look like if he got to play with somebody like a Mason Rudolph or a Brandon Whedon? Or heck, if you even look at maybe a Taylor Cornelius, right? What a corn dog would have been able to do with somebody like Brennan Presley. It's nice to have a security blanket. A lot of teams utilize their tight ends as a security blanket. And for a long time last season and the first part of this season, we didn't utilize Brennan Presley as a security blanket, nor did we utilize the tight ends. So he has been able to reach these benchmarks, these legendary marks, honestly, in spite of assistance, in spite of some coaching, in spite of some good quarterback play. In spite of so many obstacles, whether it be the locker room or your brother leaving or discontentment here or there or family or different quarterback scenarios or having the complete ineptitude from a wide receiver guru who cannot, conduct an offense. All of these things were stacking up against Brennan Presley. Yet he was still able to not only carve out a role very early on, but again, get to these milestones that I don't think a lot of us ever anticipated. No matter how good Brennan Presley was very early on as a freshman, it didn't always look like he was going to be one of the greatest of all time. A good slot receiver that was always going to be reliable, dependable. Yeah, of course. But one of the greatest to ever put on a Cowboy uniform, I don't know that many of us expected that to happen. And finally, before we jump to segment 2 here, I want to accentuate the fact that this is a local, homegrown Bixby, Oklahoma guy that, of course, was undervalued, under-recruited to some degree, ended up at Oklahoma State, and now he gets to join the pantheon of the greatest to ever do it in Stillwater. So no matter how this season has gone, no matter what it has looked like, whatever the transgressions you may have with this season, none of us can look back regretfully other than the potential quarterback scenario and offensive inefficiencies. We all love Brennan Presley, and none of us can look back at his time in a Cowboy uniform as anything other than stellar performances over and over and over again. It is pretty remarkable that he was able to do this given some of the circumstances that Cowboy football has dealt with over the last few years. It has not always been easy for Brennan Presley, nor has it really been easy for him to get the receptions that he deserves. For all the receptions he does have, and for all of the yards that he has, I think a lot of us could argue that it should be better. And it would be better if we had chosen different quarterbacks to play at different points of time in the last few years. But nonetheless, it is what it is. We are where we are, and we can all be appreciative that we get to watch Brennan Presley do it again. I mean, getting over 300 receptions, that would be a benchmark that, again, none of us really saw coming. So if he can grow that even more, 301, 302, 305, 307, it just makes the next Oklahoma State wide receiver that's going to stick around and follow the plan and trust the process. You could potentially get here, but you have to be able to play kind of early as Brennan Presley was. And as we have seen on the field, but we heard very early on, one of the reasons that he was playing as a freshman was because he never got hurt. Right? A lot of freshmen going through this level of college football, especially in spring and fall, they're going to be, dinged up, nicked up, and it's very difficult to distinguish, am I hurt or am I injured, especially when it's the first time you've ever done it. And so with some of the promising freshmen that we've had over the years, a lot of those dudes still didn't even really get to play much because they didn't battle through adversity and injuries like Brennan Presley did. So his toughness was his calling card other than his athleticism and his speed from day one. And he has proven to be loyal and true to a degree that most in today's society, may not be. And even when there's obstacles that pop up that may give justifications for potentially exploring other avenues, Brennan Presley didn't do that. So for that is yet another reason that he'll always be one of the GOATs and one of the greatest of all time. And we've had several dudes get out on the field this season already. So why not make sure that you're supporting them individually? That's right. It is time to talk about the game changer for NIL, and that is Roy. This is your opportunity to get involved in the NIL game without it being, wrapped up in this big collective. You get to specifically pinpoint your favorite student athletes and be part of the program, be part of their rise. This is revolutionary for the NIL industry. It allows you, the fan, to have some say in who gets the NIL dollar bills. There's absolutely no reason to not love that aspect of Roy. You get your money back also if that player were to transfer or not bring you the exclusive Roy content. This is going to help you make an impact on your team and your roster for hopefully a great long-term future. We know that Garrett Rangels had big moments this season, as has David Kabongo, as has Deshaun Brown, and, of course, Lyric Rawls. So this time we're going to highlight another one of the young cats that hasn't got the opportunity to get on the field. But the more freshmen that play and the more they do phenomenal, the more opportunities you think some more are going to get. So today I want to highlight Gunnar Wilson. This is the 6'3", 216-pound linebacker that we all know can almost keep up with Nick Martin. I can't wait for you guys to see it out on the field. But when you do see it out there, make sure that he's going to be a Cowboy forever that you know and love every Saturday. Highlight Gunnar Wilson and be the key for him getting the contributions he needs to always be loyal and true. Every contribution counts. 10, 20 bucks, it all adds up. Help your favorite player. I chipped in $100, so make sure that you join me to get Gunnar Wilson the respect and love that he deserves and kick off this Roy app for him today. Make sure that you use the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word. Every athlete from your team deserves representation. If you love that athlete, get them going. Today, we're going to highlight Gunnar Wilson. There is no purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Make sure that you go to joinroy.com for the full terms. Roy is changing the game. Make sure that you get with the program, change the game with them by supporting the players that you know directly will make a difference. From Roy to the Red Raiders, the crazy Red Raiders. And as I've said previously, this conference is more bipolar than my ex-old lady. And Texas Tech might encompass that more than anybody else. They have games where they score 60 or 50, and then they have games where they barely put up points. They have games where defensively they give up 400, 700 style yards, and then they have games where they are able to shore it up in the red zone and make teams fight for it. They're possibly more bipolar than anybody else in the league, and they're definitely more bipolar than we are because they have the ability to win. You guys know I'm a big believer in Behren Morton. I have been for over 2 years now. I've been singing the praises of how they're a completely different team when he's on the field as opposed to when he's not on the field. So we could potentially talk about that matchup, and of course it is going to be kind of fun. It's senior night, so I have zero hopes of anybody starting other than Alan Bowman. It is what it is. I'm becoming accepting of this fact, partially because he will be honored on senior night as a senior of Oklahoma State while playing his original Texas Tech Red Raiders that recruited him out of high school. So the team that had big hopes, and remember, this is the same Alan Bowman when Cliff Kingsbury left. He said that Texas Tech was in good hands with Alan Bowman. And Alan Bowman was a completely different player until all the injuries racked up. So it will be kind of cool from that perspective to see Behren Morton go up against the old original Texas Tech Red Raider and Alan Bowman. But outside of that, right, Taj Brooks, if he's not the best running back in the Big 12 this season, he's got to be, worst case scenario, number 2. We all expected Ollie Gordon to have another Doak Walker level season, just like we expected, Devin Neal and DJ Giddens and RJ Harvey to carry a lot of the weight. Taj Brooks, of course, was going to be instrumental in Texas Tech's success this season. And I think a large portion of the success that they have had is primarily because of that combo of Behren Morton and Taj Brooks. Behren Morton can extend plays, which is obviously going to be problematic for us at Oklahoma State. We don't do well against backup quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks. We dang sure don't do good against mobile backup quarterbacks. Behren Morton is very mobile, and he's not a backup, nor does he play like a backup. The key to this game for us is just going to be if we can stay with them offensively. And I will say, if there is a game that we would all like to see Alan Bowman absolutely go crazy with 500-yard performance and 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, it would be this one, because Texas Tech still has a lot to play for. And if we are going to build this rivalry at some point in time, maybe it should kick off this season. This is a season where they are expected to win. They probably should win. But does that not make it all the much sweeter? And if we are going to build a future rivalry with Taco Tortilla Recum Tech, an upset W in Stillwater would go a long way in at least stoking the flames and the fires of what this could potentially be. It is ironic as well to see where we are currently as universities. We have the legend and Mike Gundy, and I don't know what you could say. Most people are unhappy this season, right? So the disgruntlement is there. The level of disgruntlement may not be as high as mine, but same can be said, or at least earlier in the season with Joey McGuire, right? There was a lot of talk of, well, did Texas Tech make the right hire just because he's a recruiting guru, a high school guru in the state of Texas, and he was doing very well at Baylor? Does that mean he's going to be the guy to lead us to the promised land? But then they started reeling off some W's, and they had a couple upsets and won some games they didn't really think they could win. And now here we are having a completely different conversation. Not only is Texas Tech a bowl team, but they're a bowl team that's looking to solidify themselves to round out the end of the season, go to a good bowl game to continue their trajectory. From a recruiting perspective, they've definitely done significantly better than we have. And I think a lot of that is the excitement around Joey McGuire and some of the additions that he's made and the pieces that he's brought in on the staff. It is clearly an exciting place to be, an exciting place to play. And the new backdrop for the piece of the stadium that's been redone, it's pretty awesome. So there's a lot of things to be excited about in Lubbock, Texas. I think Joey McGuire is worthy of that excitement, just like I feel the same way about Baron Morton, Taj Brooks. What they're going to do in the future at running back, who knows? But that's not a problem we have to worry about, because this is all about being able to stay in the game offensively. Our defense is not very good. Their defense is not very good. So there's going to be opportunities for both squads to put up some points. The question is always going to be, can Alan Bowman and our offense hang around enough to make a difference in the fourth quarter? I mean, this idea of putting Maya Louiake-Smith in fourth quarter of games that are already over, we don't need to do that. Either hopefully Alan Bowman just has a good day, because then we don't have to worry about it. But if Alan Bowman doesn't have a good day, the likelihood of him getting benched at the halftime clearly are very, very slim. That's only happened one time all year, and fair, it didn't go great. It wasn't a good look against Utah for Garrett Rangel. Now, he was able to correct that against BYU, which does build a lot of excitement for Oklahoma State next season. One thing that I think is fair, one of the reasons to be frustrated about this season, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, especially in comparison to Texas Tech, I think a lot of us know that we have more talent than Texas Tech. So this isn't a talent issue. This is a schematic issue. This is a coaching issue. And maybe you could say to some degree a developmental issue, because as much as we've been singing the praises of Rob Glass, myself included, I think he's the best strength coach in the country. Our defensive line hasn't been able to move anybody, even though we've got somebody like Justin Kirkland who can literally bench almost 600 pounds and squat over 750. So how that doesn't translate might be a Rob Glass problem. It might not be. But Greg Richmond may have been the scapegoat, right? Because the development there has gone backwards with the addition of Paul Randolph. Or perhaps it is just a schematic defensive issue. Nonetheless, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech are in two entirely different positions right now. They still have quite a bit to play for, while we now are playing to ruin the season. And you know what? For a homecoming of sorts, even though, it's Texas Tech coming to Stillwater, it is still a homecoming of sorts for him. And I think a lot of us would like to see this go down the right way. We need to send the seniors off in style, of course. Alan Bowman needs to be part of that equation. And for Alan Bowman's sake, it would be nice to see him go down his final game in Stillwater, America, as a W against his former team. Like, that's kind of poetic justice. Speaking of poetic and justice, it's NFL season. So maybe Touch the over. Yes, the Hammer the Over Club is taking a little bit of a hit this year by Cowboy football. And when I say a little bit, I mean a lot of bit. But it does not mean that you still might not have some opportunities to hammer the over with FanDuel. It is America's #1 sports book for a reason. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if it's a winner. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets all in one place. When you get that tingling sensation in the middle of the game that something crazy is about to happen or it's about to get flipped on its head entirely, you can now check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more from the same page where you place your bets from. Make sure that you just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with 150 bones back in bonus bets if your $5 hauler is a winner. Make sure that you go to FanDuel.com today. Never waste that tingling sensation in your loins that something crazy is about to happen. Don't miss a single moment with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, well, from FanDuel to a conversation about all sports, just briefly, we'll do a check-in here. The Cowgirl soccer team has advanced themselves, and now they get to take on #2 overall seed and #6 team in America, Arkansas, in Fayetteville. Of course, this is a trip that a lot of us are very familiar with, maybe not super familiar with making this trip in a soccer context, but nonetheless, this is going to give the Cowgirls the opportunity to make another Sweet 16 run. And the last time that we made the postseason was 2020 when we went to the Sweet 16. So it's been a little bit of a dry season after season after season after season for a while since then, but this could be an opportunity, and getting a win over an overall 2 seed and #6 team in the country would be extremely impressive. So hopefully the Cowgirls can get it done so we can continue to talk about Cowgirl soccer moving forward. Switch over to Cowgirl basketball. J.C. Hoyt and the Cowgirls got it done against Texas Southern, 87-57, very convincingly. It was beautiful to see Annegret Asi do the daggone thing again. Not that she has, gotten rusty by any stretch, but the Cowgirls move on to 3-0 in the first 2 games. She didn't shoot a lot. Maybe she didn't have to shoot a lot, but she was able to do the daggone thing, and this was a really good game overall. J.C. Hoyt should be very pleased with how the Cowgirls are playing. It's a little sloppy still yet, and defensively there's some things that we could do to make it significantly better, but nonetheless, Annegret Asi out there dropping 33 points, and then we've talked about the big that most teams in the country are not going to be able to contend with, and that is Tinan Magassa. And she was able to chip in double digits, 11 points. You have Staley Hurd just under with 9 points. And this has got a lot of pieces. Riley Langerman is obviously back. Praise gets in there a decent amount more as a rotational piece now. Jaden Wooten, the big-time freshman, one of the biggest, the highest rated recruits in J.C. Hoyt's history at Oklahoma State. She was able to get in the game after being, dealing with some minor injuries recently. So it was good to see the Cowgirls. Micah Gray is another scorer that, can take some of the need off of Annegret Asi. Because, again, last year, if Annegret Asi or Leor Garzon were not on, there's a high likelihood we were not going to win the ball game. Macy Heward, after the big 30-point performance, and she's tapered off a little bit. Stacey Jones was very good early on. She's still continuing to be a very integral part of this team moving forward. And the Micah Gray getting your 900th career point was pretty phenomenal. Stacey Jones grabbed her 200th rebound, and the Cowgirls look to continue this undefeated streak. The next matchup is against Fairfield. So in a few days, 3 days, that should be a game that we don't have to worry about a whole lot. The Cowboys, they've got some things to worry about, but all in all, we are undefeated. So Steve Lutz should be happy about that. We've got some revenge coming up, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Cowboy wrestling, we do have all 10 guys ranked for the first time this season, and we might have a clear 133-pounder in Cale Hughes. I know there's some back and forth potentially, and Cale Hughes also was a candidate for 141. It seems as though Tegan Jamison is likely going to end up at that spot. But Cale Hughes, big win. If there's any debate on 133, perhaps this dies that down a little bit. I know Blankenship's not completely out of the mix as well, but it's nice to see all of the Cowboys, getting some rankings in here. So if you've got Wyatt Henderson at number 2, Dustin Plott number 3, Cam Amine number 5, Dean Hamidi number 5, Troy Spradley number 6, Teague Travis at number 8, all inside the top 10. Luke Serber moved up one spot to number 19. Taking Jameson, obviously, is at number 14. And Carter Young is also ranked in the top 20 at number 18. So it'll be interesting to see what this David Taylor-led squad is able to do. But 133 is going to be interesting because we also have J.J. McComas out of Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Ren Sakumato, who is one of the greatest overseas. And the fact that he's even here is kind of a big deal, so I'm pretty excited about that. Cross country, they have the opportunity to win another national title, which would be national title number 54. Although they did get upset in the Big 12s by losing to BYU, they are still number 2 in America. They should get this thing done here at the Midwest Regional and potentially exact some revenge over BYU. We also have an individual potential, not only champion contender for this meet or the Big 12s or whatever, but Brian Musau could be a legit national champion. He's currently ranked number 3 in America, but all it takes is getting hot at the right time or running the course the right way at the right time and being a consummate professional. He is all of those things, which is why I have no doubt he might have the possibility of becoming an individual national champion and help leading the Cowboys to another overall national championship, which would make number 4. How sweet would that be? Well, until then, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, funny stuff, funky stuff. You're all of it. Do what you do. Help me out. Leave a star. Leave a review. All righty, y'all. Later, my tater.